Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Books and Bytes. Today we're taking a deep dive into Stephen E. Ambrose's powerful work, D-Day, June 6, 1944, the climactic battle of World War II. Our mission, as always, is to extract the most important insights and surprising facts from this pivotal account, helping you become truly well-informed about one of history's most demanding moments.
Yeah, and Ambrose's book, it's really something special because of its deeply human approach.
Yeah.
He didn't just stick to the official records. He drew from, I think it was over 1,400 interviews, veterans from all sides.
All sides. So Americans, British, Canadians,
French, even Germans. Yeah. So you get this really raw, firsthand feel for D-Day. And a big theme, is how plans, even the best plans, they often just fell apart the second they hit the enemy.
Right, the friction of war.
Exactly. And success then came down to, ordinary soldiers, junior officers acting on their own initiative. It's just this vivid picture of courage, heroism, but also fear, sheer determination, what Eisenhower called the fury of an aroused democracy.
Yeah. That's a great phrase for it. And that focus on personal voices, it really carries the whole book. How did he actually gather all those stories? It seems like a monumental task.
It really was. He built on the work of Dr. Pogue, who did a lot of the early oral history work, actually served under Eisenhower himself. And the heart of it all was the Eisenhower Center at the University of New Orleans. They ended up with, I think, over 3,380 accounts, maybe the biggest collection for a single battle ever.
Wow.
Yeah. And lots of people helped out, like Phil Jutras, an American paratrooper who later ran the museum in St. Mary Glees. He gave them his own interviews. Ambrose gave huge credit to Kathy Jones at the center, too, called her vital. But what this method does, you see, is show the immense scale, but always through the eyes of the people there.
And the scale, just the logistics, getting millions of soldiers, tons of gear across the English Channel, that was a huge hurdle, right? Something George C. Marshall had wanted for years.
Oh, absolutely monumental. And it required some serious innovation. The landing craft were, key. Andrew Higgins, this sort of self-taught guy from Louisiana, he designed the Eureka boat, the LCVP.
The Higgins boat.
That's the one. Eisenhower famously said without Higgins's boats, the whole strategy of the war would have been different. Just think about that. They could run troops, light vehicles, right onto the beach. Then you had the bigger stuff, LSTs, landing ship tanks, LCTs for tanks, and those amazing amphibious trucks, the DUKWs.
The ducks.
Yeah. Could go straight from sea to land. Incredibly versatile.
So a lot of American know-how there, but the British had their own unique solutions too, right? Hobart's funnies.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
General Percy Hobart's inventions. They were quite something. He had swimming tanks, DD tanks, Shermans with inflatable screens.
Swimming tanks. Seriously.
Yeah, designed to launch offshore and swim in.
Yeah.
Then bridge-laying tanks and the Crab, a tank with chains to flail the ground and set off mines.
That sounds terrifying.
Right. And maybe the most ambitious thing, the Mulberry Harbors. Huge artificial ports, towed across in sections.
Just incredible ingenuity. Does that show a difference in, how the British and Americans approach the war, gadgets versus something else?
Yeah, there was a bit of that perception. The British focus on, gadgets, special techniques, espionage, versus what some saw as the American way more direct head-to-head fighting. Sometimes they kind of criticized each other for taking needless casualties. Shows how different military cultures think,
Fascinating. And beyond the gear, what about the soldiers themselves? How do you train millions of people for something like D-Day?
Training was absolutely critical, especially after Kasserine Pass in North Africa. That was a wake-up call for American training.
Right, 1943.
Yeah. Eisenhower made continuous training a top priority. It's interesting, Ambrose notes that American draftees were often seen as, brighter, healthier, better educated than their German counterparts. One historian, Jeffrey Parrott, called them maybe the best educated enlisted men in history. And many young guys, like Charles East Ambrose mentions, had this feeling of, invincibility.
Wow. Despite knowing the risks.
Yeah. The British infantry, though, having been in the UK since 1940, sometimes weren't quite as fit or educated, just a different group overall.
And then you had the elite units, the Rangers, the Commandos. Their training must have been intense.
Oh, brutal. Grueling speed marches in Scotland, that kind of thing. Ambrose fills the book with their stories. Think about Private Robert Piache, a French commando, just desperate to land in his hometown, Ouistreham.
Wow, imagine that personal connection.
Or Peter Masters and Harry Naumburg, German Jews who'd escaped the Nazis, fighting for Britain under fake names. Talk about motivation. These guys were the tip of the spear.
Incredible commitment.
Mhm.
And supporting all this was a massive intelligence effort, right? Deception was key.
Absolutely vital. You had ultra-reading German radio messages. Huge advantage.
Knowing what the enemy was thinking.
Pretty much. Then the British double-cross system. Turning German spies and feeding them accurate info, but misleading overall.
Like telling them to prepare for Norway.
Exactly. Messages about climbing gear, rock faces, trying to make them think the main attack was elsewhere. And don't forget the French resistance, crucial on-the-ground intel.
Specific examples.
Oh, yeah. A boy in Bayeux gets precise bunker locations to the British Navy. Madame Gondry runs a cafe near Pegasus Bridge, listens in on Germans, passes info about demolition charges. Neely Winters knew the local German commander's dog-walking routine. And Emmer Cater, a cyclist, used his training rides to scout defenses. Just amazing citizen bravery.
It's like this whole intricate web. Meanwhile, what's happening on the German side? They must have been stretched thin.
Stretched incredibly thin.
Yeah.
Hitler's fighting on 3 fronts: Russia, Italy, now the West. Huge shortages. Men, planes, tanks.
They had jets, though, right? The Me-262.
They did. World's first operational jet. Could fly rings around Allied planes.
Yeah.
But it was way too little, too late. Production problems, fuel shortages.
Yeah.
Hardly any saw action on D-Day. They were just outmatched.
And Rommel was there, focused on his Atlantic Wall. What was his plan, and how did Hitler mess it up for him?
Rommel was obsessed, pouring concrete, planting millions of those asparagus logs in the tide. He was convinced the invasion had to be stopped right on the beaches in the first 24 hours.
So he put everything into that coastal crust.
Pretty much. Even pulled fighting men off training to do construction. But the big irony, Hitler wouldn't give Rommel direct command of the panzer divisions, the tanks.
Why not?
Hitler kept them back, under his own control, as a central reserve. So Rommel's plan hit the beaches hard with tanks as soon as the Allies landed was impossible. His own high command blocked him. And it shows the contrast in leadership, too. Ike projected this cheerful confidence. Rommel was brilliant, but also arrogant, impatient with logistics, rubbed people the wrong way.
So, with all that going on, how did they finally settle on Normandy, the Calvados coast specifically?
It was a really smart choice. Close enough to British ports, but not the most obvious place like Calais, protected from Atlantic storms, good sandy beaches, and strategically placed between 2 weaker German armies. Plus, the Allies did some incredibly daring reconnaissance.
Like sending swimmers in?
Even more than that.
Yeah.
Combined operations pilotage parties, COPPs. They used midget submarines to get right up to the beaches, take soil samples, map obstacles. L.T. Scott Bowden talks about hitting a sand sample in his sub and yelling, "Happy New Year!" Just shows the danger, the pressure to get that detailed worm's eye view. Vital intel.
So the planning's done, the site's chosen. The tension in those final days must have been off the charts.
Immense. You had the bombing campaign, the transportation plan hitting French railways. It worked, isolated Normandy, but killed a lot of French civilians. Churchill agonized over
A
it.
heavy cost.
Yeah. General Koenig, for the Free French, basically said, "This is war." Grim acceptance. For the troops loading up, weird atmosphere, lots of food, dark jokes about being fattened for the kill.
Right.
Non-stop Hollywood movies intense. But underneath, just dread. PVT Harry Parley remembers being told flat out, expect 30% casualties, and we were them. Imagine hearing that.
Chilling. It must have felt like the whole world was gathered there in England.
It really was. Troops from everywhere. And the briefings used these incredibly detailed sand tables, sponge rubber models of the terrain, gave soldiers an almost real-time view of where they were going.
How did individuals cope with that fear, knowing what was coming?
It hit everyone differently. Chaplains are busy. Guys like Dutch Schultz went to confession. John Barnes made deals with God and rethought them. The fear was so extreme, Ambrose mentioned. Some guys shot themselves in the foot or fired rifles into tents, just desperate to avoid going.
Just unimaginable pressure. And it all came down to Eisenhower and the weather.
Exactly. The weather forecast from Group Captain Stagg was crucial. It looked bad, then maybe a small window. Lee Mallory, the air commander, still had big doubts. But Eisenhower, at 9:45 p.m. on June 4th, he just said, "Okay, let's go." He knew delaying was maybe even riskier. Keeping that secret any longer? Huge gamble. What leadership?
And then the jump. The airborne troops went first. What was that like? Chaos.
Pure chaos, often. The $10,000 jump, they called it insurance payout if you didn't make it. Idea was your real trouble starts after you land. Major Maxwell Taylor actually fell asleep on the plane. PVT William True just couldn't believe someone was actually shooting at him, trying to kill Bill True.
Surreal.
And the sky, filled with German flak, tracers. Like the greatest 4th of July fireworks, many said. Mesmerizing. but deadly. Landings were rough. Guys hitting telephone poles, getting stuck in trees. BVT James Eads landed right in a manure pile.
Oh, man. So lots of guys missed their drop zones, units all mixed up.
Totally. Pilots were speeding up, dodging flak. So guys landed miles off target, mixed in with other units. Assembly plans often went out the window. Though the SAS used that chaos, cleverly dropped dummy paratroopers, Ruperts, with recordings of gunfire to confuse the Germans. Tied up reserves.
Smart, but they encountered unexpected challenges on the ground, too.
Oh, yeah. The biggest surprise? The French hedgerows. Bocage country. Intelligence hadn't realized how massive they were. 6 feet high, thick, tangled, basically ready-made German trenches, made advancing incredibly hard.
But despite the chaos, the airborne did achieve some key objectives early on.
Crucially, yes. Especially the British 6th Airborne. They took Pegasus Bridge Vital Crossing and knocked out the big guns at the Merville Battery, secured the whole left flank of the invasion. Huge success.
Okay, so while the paratroopers fought inland, the main armada was crossing the channel. Must have been incredible.
An unbelievable sight. Thousands of ships, led by 255 minesweepers. The first casualties were actually from mines, like the USS Osprey sinking. But considering the scale, the crossing was remarkably smooth. Almost miraculous, some felt. Divine guidance. And the German Navy. Barely a factor. They were a shadow of their former selves.
And the pre-landing bombardment. Did it work?
Hit and miss, really. The B-17s, because of cloud cover and safety margins, often dropped their bombs too far inland. Missed a lot of beach defenses. But, the truly critical air job winning air superiority, isolating Normandy that had mostly been done in April and May, the Luftwaffe was scarce on D-Day.
There's that story of the lone German fighter pilot.
Joseph Priller. Yeah, him and his wingman made one strafing run over the beaches. He apparently said, "What a show." Just highlights how totally the Allies own the sky.
Okay, boots on the ground. Let's start with Utah Beach. That went relatively well, right?
Utah was, an unexpected success, as Ambrose puts it. The swimming DD tanks got ashore okay, gave good fire support. General Roosevelt Jr., though, Ambrose clarifies. Van Fleet made the call, famously said, "We'll start the war from right here," when they landed slightly off course. Linked up quickly with the airborne, casualties were comparatively light.
A world away from Omaha Beach. That was hellish. What went wrong?
Omaha was the one planners hated from the start. And is hell. The big mistake was intelligence thinking it was defended by the weaker 716th Division.
But it wasn't.
No. The veteran 352nd Division was there, dug in, overlooking the beach, untouched by the bombing. Captain Robert Walker got there and just yelled, "Where's the damned Air Corps?" Conditions were just horrific. Machine gun fire like a buzzsaw. One German MG-42 fired 12,000 rounds that morning. Men were pinned down, bunched up from landing in the wrong spots. Gear was waterlogged, heavy.
Like PVT Roach with a flamethrower.
Over 100 pounds.
Yeah.
PPT Valence just having to ditch equipment because it was dragging him under. It's brutal.
Ambrose captures some powerful individual moments from Omaha, doesn't he? The human cost.
He really does. Skipke Benjamin McKinney, seasick, just thinking, I didn't care if a bullet hit me. Get me out of my misery.
Yeah.
The skipper of LCI 94, the Popeye skipper, refusing to drop his rammed into a slaughterhouse, backing off, saving lives by disobeying. And PPT Raymond Howell gets hit by shrapnel, sees guys dying all around him and just decides, bullshit, if I'm going to die, I'm not going to die here. Finds the resolve to get over the seawall. That kind of individual decision, multiplied, was the turning point.
That initiative from below, junior officers, NCOs, just saying, follow me.
Exactly. Guys like General Coda, LT Van de Voort, they just started moving, showing it could be done, getting men off the beach, up the bluffs.
And the Navy stepped up in a big way, too.
Oh, yeah, the Navy's safe. Destroyers, like the McCook, the Frankfurt, they ignored orders about staying back, steamed right in, almost grounding themselves.
Really? That close?
Dangerously close. Started blasting German gun positions directly. The infantry said they saved the invasion. But even then, Omaha was just a bottleneck, a huge traffic jam. Engineers became heroes, clearing paths off the beach like exits E1 and D1 under constant fire. Just incredibly brave work to finally get vehicles moving inland.
Even Robert Capa, the famous photographer, was right in the thick of it.
Yeah, landed at Easy Red, took those iconic, slightly blurry photos, said he just kept repeating to himself in Spanish, "Es una cosa muy seria." This is a very serious business. Omaha really tested the limits.
While Omaha teetered, how were things on the British and Canadian beaches? Gold, Juno, Sword.
Generally better. Hobart's funnies made a real difference there. Clearing mines, obstacles. The DA tanks mostly worked better on Gold and Sword. The Canadians on Juno faced fierce resistance, but fought with, as Ambrose says, real fury in the street, fighting once they got off the beach.
You mentioned CLP to Masters.
Right, the German Jew fighting for Britain. landed overloaded with gear and a bicycle. Went off on a solo scouting mission. That mix of specialized gear and individual grit. Though Ambrose does note a tendency sometimes, after the initial success, for the British and Canadians to maybe lose a bit of momentum, not push inland quite as aggressively as planned that first day.
So as the sun started to set on June 6th, what was the situation? Were the beachheads secure? What was happening back home?
On the ground, it was about linking up, airborne connecting with guys from the beaches, exhaustion everywhere. German counterattacks were happening, but they were piecemeal, disorganized. Partly because Hitler was still holding back some key panzer divisions.
Rommel's fixed defenses didn't help him once the Allies broke through, did they?
Exactly, made the landing harder, sure. But once the wall was breached, those static troops couldn't react quickly. His strategy kind of backfired once the Allies were ashore. Back home, in the U.S., Canada. A strange day. Real national unity, people glued to radios, but the news was slow, repetitive, no casualty figures allowed yet.
Little details stick out, right? Stores closing for prayer.
Yeah, Lord and Taylor closed, baseball games canceled. Wall Street was already thinking about reconversion to peacetime industry, a mix of anxiety and maybe cautious optimism.
And in France itself, liberation, but also destruction.
Absolutely. Memmich's diary entry, Ambrose quotes, "The shock of the impossible landing happening, the relief, but also the devastation all around. And that final image, the lone German Me-109 flying over the fleet at dusk, defying thousands of guns, a kind of final futile gesture against this overwhelming power. On the beaches, as night fell, it was just about survival. Steenet Parley digging a shallow hole, totally spent. PVT Sawyer seeing his buddy ear hunting, the raw, grim reality setting in after the adrenaline faded."
Okay, let's unpack this. Stephen Ambrose's D-Day really drives home that this wasn't just about grand strategy or better tanks, although those mattered. It was fundamentally about, well, individual people, ordinary soldiers, sailors, airmen, facing something almost unimaginable and finding the courage, the initiative, the sheer endurance to push through.
So what does this all mean for us today? I think that theme just keeps coming back, thanks to Ambrose digging up all those personal stories. Clans are great, essential even, but they rarely survive first contact, right? Success, when everything goes wrong, comes down to people on the ground. Junior leaders, regular soldiers, adapting, improvising, refusing to quit. That fury of aroused democracy Eisenhower talked about, it wasn't just rhetoric. You see it lived out, minute by minute on those beaches. It's about human resilience, really, under the most extreme pressure imaginable.
So maybe the final thought for you listening is this. What does this extraordinary deep dive into D-Day tell us about human resilience and leadership when faced with the absolute unknown? Is it a reminder that even the most meticulously planned endeavors ultimately hinge on the adaptable spirit of individuals and that unwavering conviction to push forward even when everything around you screams disaster? Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.